Hello, it is March 28th, 2022. This is As the World Burns. I'm your host, Randall Burns. Today, we're going to be looking at pandemic trends. I've covered this topic about a year ago, and I think it's time to update it. The first question we're looking at is my US COVID related deaths in 2020. This was one of the more accurate forecasts out there for this one. The One thing that is a little bit unfortunate, this one, is that Metaculus doesn't give us good detail on this one. We can't, like, say, look at a specific time frame on this one. There's actually more variation in the odds on this one than you can see from. When you have more detail, you can actually see, for example, like the uptick with the anti-lockdown protests, the uptick with the BLM protests, and the uptick with the Trump rallies, which I think is useful information and explains a lot about how this thing progressed. Here is the resolution. I was pretty on top of this. The big problem was I was overly optimistic by about 16%, sadly. Metaculus is not a perfect forecasting mechanism, but I think if you look, it's better than, say, for example, the Gates Foundation forecast, which had a lot more resources. Now, we are still awaiting resolution for the 2021 question that I asked, but I think it's going to be a little closer to the mark on this one. I think people were being a bit more realistic. The resolution on this one should be coming any day now. Again, you notice the trend. It starts out a little low and then it converges towards reality. The 2022 forecast is still very much in play. I think that this is really worth noting, the trend lines. Earlier on, folks were thinking it was over. They're now looking like it's not over. I think that if you look at the trend line and adjust for it, we're looking at over 200,000 deaths in 2022, despite the presence of the vaccine. I find this highly unfortunate, but we deal with the reality that we live in. Now, for 2023, I'm also fairly pessimistic. The community prediction is around currently under 100,000. I don't think we're going to make that, but we will see. And if, again, you notice the upward trend line, and we're far enough away that people are still thinking optimistically. And I think that you're going to see that trend continue to accelerate, sadly. Now, this chart explains a lot about the situation that we went into in the United States going into this pandemic. The U.S. has had declining health standards since 1980 relative to other comparable nations. And this link will be in the description. It's a very good one. And you also notice that when the U.S. did encounter this pandemic, it had more of a downtick relative to comparable nations also. I mean, the other nations had a problem, but the U.S. had a bigger. Now, there are very important quality of life issues, productivity issues, cognition issues that are missed in these mortality figures. And I've been trying to generate questions on that topic. I've not yet been able to generate a lot of buzz or interest in it so far on Metaculus. I'd appreciate suggestions in that area. Some good work from an economist, Edward Wolff, and I'll include links to his work in the description. He noted that since 1980, since 1980, about 95% of the U.S. population have lost ground in terms of net worth. And that seems correlated also in terms of losing ground in terms of health standards. Now, I think we need to look at more than just the wealth trends and money on this, but this is something that's accessible to me and that I felt I should talk to people about. We had a lot of people that just wanted to believe that they got the vaccine, they didn't have to worry about anything anymore. And the vaccines do a very good job of keeping people out of the hospital and out of the morgue. They do not do such a great job at preventing transmission. There are vaccines under development that are true blocking vaccines that will do a very good job at preventing transmission, as well as preventing infection altogether and any side effects there might be from multiple infections. Those vaccines are not on the market. I'm including a link to a research group at Pennsylvania State University that is actively working in this area. And I think that this research is very encouraging. It's just not here yet. In the meantime, we need better education about what the current vaccines do and don't do and what can be reasonably expected from them and how they could be used, optimally used, and what other precautions people really do need to take. Another greatly underutilized resource are rapid antigen tests. I'm including an information link on this one below. Michael Minnow at Harvard Public Health has been one of the heroes of the pandemic, leading the charge in this area. And these tests, I bought them yesterday for $5.95 each at Costco. These I think are useful for things like having family gatherings safely. And they could be also used for larger social events, but there may need to be some more infrastructure in place for that one to enable people to record their test results remotely before they go someplace. Still, this is not a speculative technology. It's here now. There's a lot of work being done on wastewater testing. This is another really promising one because it'll enable telling people, for example, when they've been places where they might have been exposed. And so they can ramp up the rapid testing. I think it also could make a much more efficient use of rapid testing resources. And we could just give people an idea of where the places are where they have the most risk. Another technology that is being greatly enhanced and advancing rapidly is ventilation and air filtration. I'm still learning a bit about that. I've communicated with an HVAC engineer. I'll include you the link below to the first group of materials that he's given me. I may have more to say on this one later, but it's very encouraging. And so, you can stop the transmission rate in a building in a way that's very transparent. People, they don't think a lot about it. Now this is also something that can be handled by local and state building departments and regulatory agencies. So it may move fairly fast. Now, as a tech veteran, one of the things that's been very clear to me is that this thing could advance in other areas. Here's a conversation I have with Michael Minnow of Harvard Public Health about the potential of using similar technology for colds and flus, and it appears quite promising. So literally that we may come out of this pandemic with someone actually addressing the common cold. And I see that as very encouraging. One of the unfortunate trends in healthcare in the US is there's been a tendency to market products that make a problem manageable rather than market real solutions. And in this case, the rapid tests are a real solution. They really do stop transmission. They really do bring R naught below zero. They really are a eradication strategy. And that's what we need to think in terms of now. It's not just making this manageable and tolerable, but eradicating. And we have other countries that have done more in this area and are doing more in this area. And the US simply needs to look really at how that may relate to our goals as a nation. Now, the stakes here may be a lot higher than are commonly realized. Greg Cochran at the University of Utah has done a lot of research on slow incubation viruses, and he thinks they relate to a lot of health problems that are poorly understood today. And I'm not going to argue with the point. Now, he is not a real mainstream researcher. His work has not, I don't think, gotten as much attention as it maybe should. He also has veered off into areas that are unrelated and I think are something of a distraction. But the thing is if he is at all right on his hypothesis, we could have huge wins in productivity, life expectancy, areas like intelligence and cognition and productivity. So there's a huge economic and social win for this potentially that really needs to be properly investigated. I hope this has given you some things to think about. Please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe to the channel. Love to hear from you folks. Comments are welcome. Suggestions for future episodes are welcome. I try to respond to all thoughtful comments. The YouTube algorithm will not let me respond to flames. They generally just get distracted from that. More material is coming. Until then, this is Randall Burns signing off.